Welcome to the Profit Answer Man, Eric Dingler. It's great to have you join us today.
Well, thank you. Very excited to be here. Looking forward to having a great conversation.
As am I. Can you share a little bit about yourself and your business?
So, I own a digital marketing agency, and my wife and I have leveraged that business to allow us to live location independent. So, for the last 3 years, we've been traveling full time. We're in our 15th country in 3 years. We've got four teenagers, and we are having an absolute ball exploring the world and building a business as we do it.
And I'm guessing that most people went into business to have time freedom, to be able to travel, hang out with their kids, and most of them probably aren't experiencing it. And we're going to talk about how they can today. So we'll get to that. Before we do, you're a fan of Profit First. So how'd you learn about Profit First?
I was struggling with my business starting out. It just wasn't the money wasn't working the way I thought it would. And I was in a small business association. This was when we were still living in the States. We were living a rooted life. And one of the guys in there, a financial planner, told me to read this book by this Mike Michalowicz guy. And I've read every book he's written because of that. Profit First was total game changer for me.
So how did it change your business?
It gave me systems that allowed me to be disciplined without having to do the work of being disciplined. So I'm a framework nerd. I love a good framework. And it just clicked for the way my brain worked. And especially for at that time, well, we're still a bootstrap business, but a solopreneur, single person business, uh, I needed systems that just let me do it as a grown up. And that's what Profit First did.
And it is the reason I love it. And I've been using the concept of profit first and automating money going places for, my God, over 30 years. And it reason that I was able to build well is when you put a system in place that works even when you're not paying attention. It's amazing how human nature just does what it does and you stay within your confines when those are your confines. And the cool thing is, I know until they partnered with Relay, it used to be sometimes difficult to be able to do the allocations or deal with the banks. But now that whole process is entirely automated where you just set it up and all your money goes where it's supposed to, when it's supposed to go there. You just focus on, hey, this is how much I have to spend and I can't spend more. And it all kind of
Yeah.
works out, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And my wife became a big fan the first time I brought that quarterly check home. She was hooked. And so she was a big encourager to make sure I kept using Profit First.
And that's the other thing it does. It allows you to start building up a cash balance. We encourage people to, when you get your profit, once a quarter, you take your profit check and you take half your profit account. And then it's a question of how do you want to do it? For those businesses or people who are in debt, they use it to pay down debt, but they also use a little to celebrate. And once you're out of debt, sometimes we use it to build up a nice reserve so that, if we get punched in the face, which happens, we survive that. And then we use it for retirement. And we also use it to go have fun, right? Hey, here's what we're going to splurge on. We worked hard in the business. There should be a reward, and here's our reward. Let's go enjoy
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. And we use a percentage of it. So my wife and I started a nonprofit and we use the profit from our company to fund our nonprofit. And so, so our percentage is a little bit different because of that, but we still bring home enough to, play a little, save a little, and then fund our nonprofit.
And that's perfectly fine. As a matter of fact, I have a lot of business owners who tithe. So we use the profit account. Part of the profit account becomes the tithing account. And so they know, okay, I get to take half out of the profit account. And out of the half that comes out of the profit account, this percentage of it becomes our giving. And so they do
Yeah.
that. And that works.
Yep.
And this way,
Yep.
the money's there, it's allocated, it's systematized. It's easy to write the check because it's there. And it's never a conversation and another thing to worry about. It's like, oh, this is what we're doing. This is how we do it. Let's just do it. And it's like, cool,
That's right.
go do it.
That's right.
You got too many other things to worry about, right?
Yeah. Well, like we've got kids and the business and clients and the team, and there's plenty to keep me to keep my focus. And I tell I'm allergic to details. And so, I was not doing well managing the money without a system. So it was huge.
A lot of business owners are allergic to details, and they're allergic to accounting, and they're allergic to profit sometimes too, which is not good.
Not good. Yeah.
So here's the interesting question. You're in another country, which means you're in another time zone,
Mhm.
right? You're
Yep.
not in front of your people, so you can't see what they're doing. And yet you're managing a company with people and you're doing it across all of this. How are you able to do that, especially when you don't pay attention to detail?
Well, so for 15 years before we started living this lifestyle, I ran a summer camp, and every summer I had to hire multiple staff for the summer. And so one of the skills that I developed through that time was hiring. And it really is about hiring the right people. I think, a person's leadership capacity, that's the capacity of their business. And so when we go to hire, we hire it takes a long time to get hired by us. We have multiple interviews. We hire for character first, and we have some different ways that we test people's character, but we hire for character and then chemistry with the team. And then finally competency, and we find competency by your ability to learn. So it's not so much the skills that you bring to the team. It's, can I trust you? Are you a person of honor? Are you going to do the things you've committed to doing? And so I think because of that, and I give my team a lot of trust, and we have, again, systems in place. We have a weekly report. Everybody's got to submit. Everybody on the team has a leader, and they meet with that leader once a week. I meet with my leadership team every Friday. We'll have our leadership team meeting tomorrow. So you still have to have systems in place, because I believe one of the things in business is it's really never a people problem. It's almost always a systems problem. And so again, it just comes back to systems and frameworks. That's what makes a business really effective, I think.
It sounds like you're doing traction. Are you familiar with that book, or is it a variation or your own variation or different?
I would say my own variation. I'm very heavily influenced by Dave Ramsey, Entree Leadership stuff.
Hmm.
The Jim Collins stuff, John Maxwell. I love to read, and I think all great leaders are used to be leaders or readers, but I listen to audiobooks now. So leaders consume content, and then just trial and error. Like I said, at 15 years of running a summer camp, one of the great things about that job was every summer I got a do-over. And so just a lot of trial and error.
Okay. Well, and the reason I say that is because one of the big things with traction is they have a weekly meeting with the leadership team with a
Mm.
scorecard, and you've got systems and processes. So again, he didn't invent anything. He just like profit first is not a new invention. It's age old principles with a marketing gimmick around it, right?
There you go.
Pay
There you
yourself
go. Yeah.
first, right? Which is Dave
Right.
Ramsey. Pay yourself first. Stay out of debt. It works in business, it works in life. How do you figure out people's character?
So when we post a job, we always say the same thing. We always have a job description, and we ask people, go read this job description. And when you're done, let us know if you're interested in the job. And about 75% of the people will reply with some type of, I read the job description. It's perfect for me. I think I can be I'm going to be an asset for your company. Here's my portfolio. Well, the thing is, in the job description, we hide two Easter eggs. And one of them is the first sentence that you're supposed to put on your reply. And then later in the job description, you're supposed to tell us your favorite candy bar. And so immediately we can eliminate about 75% of applicants when we do hire, because they lied. They said, I read the job, because we say, read the job description. And they say, oh, I read it. Well, you lie. And so you're immediately done at that point.
Before you
And
go
then
on,
just,
but
yeah.
hang on, because I want to talk to this. I love the concept. This is what I call a tripwire, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And what I mean by that is you created two small conditions, very simple, very easy to do. If they miss the tripwire, you can throw the resume away. You don't have to read it. You're looking for A, Does the sentence start with this? No. Next. The sentence started with that. What's their favorite candy bar? Okay, now I'm going to invest in reading this resume. If not, I just eliminated 75% of my resumes. It's the 80-20 rule. How do we get
Yeah,
rid of the 80%? That does, like, here's how. Create a tripwire. Everything you look at, you just got to figure out what are your simple tripwires that you can install. And
that's
that's the
good.
same thing. I use it in a sense for clients coming on board because I don't want to work with a pain in the ass people, right? So you put some tripwires in place that are very subtle, and if people make it through, then it's good and it's easy, and that's what you kind of got to do. All right,
Yeah,
go ahead,
that's
move
good.
on to the next one.
And then we have a series of interviews, and so we'll each interview is different and testing a different thing. But we have one or two questions that gets asked by everybody, and then we compare the answers internally. Did your answers stay consistent over a couple different interviews from a couple different people? And then I like the Patrick Lencioni's The Working Geniuses, and there are some people that have a higher level of discernment. And so one of those people is normally involved with the interview team. And I've just learned over time to trust these people. And if they go, my spidey senses are tingling, I don't think something's not right here. I have an abundance mindset. We're going to find something. I'd rather be understaffed than wrong staffed. And so we'll just wait. We'll just wait. So yeah, so that's the main ways. And then test. Everybody has to do a test project before they get hired. And so it's just a lot of steps. And a lot of people here, I know I've talked a bit and they're like, well, I wouldn't get anybody to work for me. There are a lot of people out there that are looking for work. And if you treat them well, they'll go through all the hoops to work for you. So I've never had a problem.
I kind of lucked out in learning that when I got my first job back in the 80s. It was a sales job. And the second interview was you had to sell a product. And basically, what they did is they had you come in 30 minutes before the interview. They gave you a scenario. And inside of the scenario were, as you call them, Easter eggs. And they wanted to see what you would naturally do and how you would
Mhm.
naturally think and what you were going to present, what you weren't, and what questions and so forth. So everyone got the same scenario. So you could kind of see how do these people take a situation, how do they adapt it, what are their natural inclinations and skills, and then how does it come about. And I think that's extremely useful, and it's a great way to do it. You're trying to find their natural tendencies, and the funny thing is I really learned that when I was coaching soccer because kids will naturally show up on the field where they are most comfortable. And if
Okay.
you watch where they're most comfortable, and instead of trying to put people in a position, you look at your team, which is what Lencioni's doing. Hey, where are all the different positions I need? And how do these people fit into those positions, not jamming the square peg in the round hole? This is the team I have. I see what I have. This is how they're naturally going to show up on the field. I'm going to put them in their natural positions and I'm going to let them play and they'll do it.
Yeah, that's good.
Some of them would say, well, I want to be a striker. And I'm like, you're the striker. They're playing defense because that's where they ended up.
Right.
So it didn't even matter what you said to them, right?
Right. That's
It's a
funny.
game. But
Yeah.
that's the psychology of how you do it. And I love the different kinds of tests that are out there. That's one. And your team needs to have all the different pieces of what, the working genius. If you don't have a person in there, you've got a hole in your business. And
Yeah.
you got to
Yeah,
fill the
absolutely.
hole. And you can't say, "Hey, I want you to be this kind of person." Like it doesn't work. You got to find that person and put them in that role.
Yeah. And sometimes you have to borrow people. So like because I talk about having interview teams and different people do different parts of the interview. And I'll talk to people that are solopreneurs and they're like, well, I'm the only person. And I'm like, but you have friends, you like other people can do the interview that don't work for you. So like one of the things we interview for is chemistry. Well, I just need a friend that knows me well enough that can get on a call with somebody and ask some questions. We've got a series of questions to help them. But at the end, can get off the phone and say, you know what? You two are going to clash. You two are not going to, you're too similar, or they do this and I know you, that's going to bug you. Like, this isn't going to be a good fit. And so if you're a solopreneur, or just, or maybe you like, I'm the only leader. I don't have anybody else that can do the interview. Well, if you don't have any friends or colleagues or other business owners, you're in for a long, long, unhappy road. So you got to have a network of somebody that can help with this stuff.
You do. And that's one of the reasons to belong to a mastermind or to belong to an association. Because, first of all, if you're a solopreneur, you're not hiring anybody. So we don't have to worry about this, so to speak. You hire an agency, put somebody else out there. But yeah, you make friends with some other business owners and you help each other out. And in doing that, you're each volunteering your time for each other. And so it kind of works together like that. And I think that's a big part of it. How do you discern their ability to learn?
Yeah, so this is a little bit, this varies kind of like job to job. So if we're going to hire somebody, so I own a digital marketing web design agency. And so we build all of our websites in WordPress. And so if we're bringing on a junior web developer, we'll find out, do you know how to use this type of software or do this type of code? And if they're like, nope, I have no idea. We're like, okay, great. We're going to have you create this. And you have to use this kind of code. And here's a website with directions. Or now we'll tell them, hey, we want you to create this and you're allowed to use ChatGPT to help. Can they problem solve and create something, even if they don't like, can they create something custom CSS, custom PHP? Can they come up with a simple code using the internet or AI now? And if they can't even do that, well, then they don't have the ability to learn. And we're looking for people that are able to problem solve, leverage resources, knowledge bases, help desks, all that. Because when we hire a new person, like, so we use a software platform called Hive for our project management and team communication. Well, every employee that comes on, they have to go through the knowledge videos, the training videos that I used when I first signed up for Hive, because I want them to have first generation training. A lot of employee people, they'll hire people and they'll train you. I'm going to train you how I've learned to use this software. Well, if you have bad habits, you just pass those bad habits on. And then if you have them train the next person. So we do first generation training for everybody. Everybody has to go back to the original source material that by the time they come on, and there have been times we hired somebody not too long, about 6 months ago, and her title is director of product. And we were in a meeting and we were trying to figure something out. And she goes, well, why don't we just have Hive do XYZ? And my director of web services and we kind of both like got real quiet, and neither one of us wanted to say it first. But finally I was like, Hive can do that? And she's like, yeah, here was a new feature. Neither one of us even knew about it. But because she went back to first generation training, she was able to, she had the most fresh and up to date information. So that's how we want people that are willing to learn, that are able to solve a problem. Because if you can do those things with enough amount of time in front of you, you can upskill regularly if it's a passion area of yours.
And that's true. I just love how you take the time to do it right at the beginning to prevent the problems. And I find that most of the times when we have problems, we knew it going in, but we ignored the red flags or we just didn't want to deal with it. We didn't want to say no. I'll fix it tomorrow. You won't fix it tomorrow, right? Let's face
Right.
it.
Yeah, because tomorrow's going to have its own problems.
Tomorrow's going to have its own problems. And now you're stuck managing people. And it's funny because one of my clients, we've been working together for a long time. And one of the things they finally accomplished was creating a team. And it took them a long time to go from where they were to where they wanted to be, creating a team that didn't need to be managed.
Mm,
And that
yeah.
was a game changer for them. They're like, nobody, like, it frees up all of leadership's time because we're no longer managing people. If you can have self managing people that get along and work together and take ownership, things are wonderful. and you've proven it can be done, right? You're a small business guy. You don't have a ton of employees, but yet you're able to do this. You're able to travel. You're able to see the world, be asynchronous time zones, and handle it. How often do you get like emergencies that screw up your day?
You know, emergencies that screw up my day, those still pop up probably once a month. It depends, because we've got server issues and software and, a couple hundred website we manage. And all of a sudden, if 50 websites share the same exact piece of software and that software updates and it breaks away, I've got 50 websites that are broken. I get paged, I'll get a text at that point just because my team needs help to get those 50 websites fixed as fast as possible. Trust me, as much as possible, my team does not like me touching client websites anymore. They really try not to let me get in there. But there are times things happen because we are dealing with technology and software and stuff like that. Or a sudden client will have an issue. Last year alone, we had two situations where the primary owner of a company suddenly unexpectedly passed away. Like finally somebody was able to find our contact information, reach out to us because they had no idea how to get anything out of their website, money, the contacts, there was no system in place. And, even though it wasn't our fault, it became our responsibility just being decent human beings to try to help it because these people are also grieving the loss. So there's all kinds of things that come up in my business, just like anybody else's business.
But it's not an everyday emergency.
No, no. And how do you plan? I mean, the first time I got a text message asking me if I was, are you guy the guy that manages, this website? I was like a little nervous about that. And when I replied back, yes, and then they told me what happened, I immediately called them. We had no standard operating procedure in place. We had not like, how do you foresee something like that? Yeah. We now have standard operating procedures in place if an employee gets fired, because if they get fired and had access to stuff, unfortunately, even though we try to teach our clients, a lot of business owners, they'll use the same password for multiple things. And so we've got to go through and help reset a lot of stuff and lock people out and things like that. So over time, you develop those standard operating procedures. And now a lot of things, I try not to get called in. If I get called in for something, I step back and ask myself, is it worth creating an SOP like, what's the likelihood this is going to happen again? Because I don't want to create a policy and procedure for every little thing, but you learn as you go.
A lot of business owners are like, my hair's on fire. I don't have time to create SOPs. Like, yeah, whatever. How difficult was it in the beginning to kind of get started, and how complicated is it?
Well, it was really difficult in the beginning because I felt like I had to create a standard operating procedure manual. And it wasn't until I finally realized I don't have to have a manual. I need a template. That's the first thing I needed. And then I created the template. Well, I can carve out enough time. So one of the things I did very early on is I decided to start taking what I called CEO time. And at first, it was an hour a month. That was it. I would go to a monthly business association meeting, and I would save enough time to sit at the cafe where we met for an hour afterwards and work on my business. And it didn't take long for me to realize this needs to be longer. Within 6 months, I was doing a day. So I would do a CEO day, and I would just take one day a month and I would block it off my calendar and I would go somewhere. We were in Virginia Beach at the time. So I would go find somewhere with a great view and I just worked on the business that day. No email, like I just had to work on the business. And I would be like, okay, I'm going to create two SOP and I would have a to-do list and I would just save it up for that day and I would do it. And that was hard because I don't like doing that kind of stuff because it's not fun.
Well, I should. Certain people like doing it. Certain people don't. You got to find the person who likes to do it and have them do it. But you got to
Right.
get it out of your head. Here's the really
Yes.
cool thing, though. In today's world, there's this thing called ChatGPT.
Yes.
Literally, you can sit down and have it interview you and create a standard operating procedure for you and help
Yes.
you fill in the blanks. And it makes it sound like you know what you're doing.
Yes.
So it
We
amazing.
we now have a prompt that we use that has brackets so that it knows how we want the stuff broken down. And what we do now, anytime any of us, because everybody on my team, all of my leaders, my three main leaders, they are required right now to create or evaluate one SOP a week, because we're preparing to go into a season of scaling. We're not ready yet, but we're getting ready. And so what we do is we record ourselves working using a software called Loom. It's a screen recorder. It works really, really great. When we're done recording that, it gives us the transcript. We take that transcript, copy it, paste it into ChatGPT, and oh my gosh, what a difference it makes compared to how we used to have to do the SOPs. It's just fantastic.
And my first line would be, write this so a 5-year-old can do it,
That's good. Yeah,
right?
that's
And it
good.
will
Yeah.
put it in words that are simple and easy for people to understand. And I mean, essentially, and I always like to talk about McDonald's. You're creating the systems like McDonald has, so that no matter when you walk in, your Big Mac is the same, even when you're in Europe. Although they do it a little different in Europe because they have little taste differences. But yeah,
Yeah,
same
yeah, but it's
concept.
the same. They take the concept, and then we talk about the principle behind the practice. Because we'll see other businesses do things, and we're like, well, that's a really good idea. But then we wrestle with, why is that working? I want to know the principle at play behind the practice. What's the human nature? Why is it working? Because then we can contextualize it to our business. And so, yeah, yeah, it's good
Makes
stuff.
a lot of sense. I want to give you a minute. Let everyone know kind of what you do and how you help businesses and where they can find you.
Okay, great. Well, one of the things that happened as we started traveling full time is I did not expect and didn't see it coming, but I have become a professional. I've become a full time, first time customer. Every 4 to 6 weeks or so, or 4 to 8 weeks. Sometimes we stay someplace longer, but on average, 4 to 8 weeks, we move to a new city. Which means we are finding a new dentist every time we need a dentist, a barber every time we need a barber, grocery store, shoe store. Like, we don't have our places we go to. Um, so we're always finding everything new. And I work with local businesses in the United States. That's who we do digital marketing for. Since I've become this full-time first-time customer, I've started really noticing why some businesses stand out and get my money and why others don't. And so we've kind of crafted this down to a 4-part framework that we work with local businesses to just make sure, a lot of local businesses get overwhelmed because they're like, I got to be on TikTok and I got to be here and I got to do this and I got to have, when reality is your marketing only has to reach a 2 to 5 mile radius, half a mile if you're like a barber shop, in an urban area. A mile and a half, 2 miles for a restaurant, maybe 5 to 7 for a mechanic. Like it changes industry to industry, but you only have to reach a few people in a really small geographic area. And so we just help strip away all the fluff and help businesses realize there's 4 things they need, and we help them figure that out, what they're missing and how to create it and get it plugged in. We don't do things for people. We're a done with you marketing agency. I'm not going to run your email marketing, but I'll do the nerd work of making sure your email system is set up. We'll give you a calendar to plan. We'll teach you how to use ChatGPT to plan your newsletter, craft it, but then you can send your own newsletter and it's going to be better than anything I would write for you. So we're a done with you digital marketing agency. And because we are living this amazing lifestyle and I'm an entrepreneur, we had a lot of people reaching out asking us how we did it. So I've put together a 90-day I call it an accelerator, a 90-day accelerator to help people set up a profitable location independent business model in 90 days. So I do both of those things now.
And how do they find you?
For both, it's just ericdingler.com, ERICDINGLER, Dingler.com. That's going to drop you right up to my LinkedIn. Connect with me on LinkedIn. Let me know which you're interested in. I've got 2 different assessments. If you're interested in marketing help, I'll send you the link for the marketing assessment. If you're interested in the location independent business model, I'll send you that assessment. Each one takes about 4 minutes, 5 if you're a thinker on questions. And at the end of that assessment, it's going to give you a snapshot of where you're ready to go, where you're not ready to go. And then I'll give you some resources after that to help complete the picture.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks. This was a great conversation. Loved your questions.
Thanks for listening to this unedited video of the Profit Answer Man podcast. If you'd like to catch the full episode and learn more about what we do, check us out at profitcomesfirst.com. We also go through the Profit First book in each and every chapter in the beginning episodes of the podcast, so check those out as well. Thanks for listening, and here's to you having a more profitable and growing business.